agenda tonight. And first thing I'll do is hand it over across the table for introductions and what we're going to be talking about.
Absolutely. Well, welcome. I'm David Brower. I am Assistant Superintendent. I get to work with several departments, and one of the departments I get to work with is Student Services. And it's so amazing to work with this team who really are all about making sure students are safe and ready to access academics. And so I'm joined here with Sarah O'Donnell, our Executive Director of Student Services. You're going to be hearing from each of these people tonight. And then Sherry Simpson, our Director of, I got to write this down, I have to look at a time, Behavior and Mental Health Supports. And then we're also just super excited to have 3 members of our counseling team. We just have an amazing group of counselors that support our students from personal experiences, having students in the school, and just how critical our counselors are and have been, and truly have just been amazing for my own family as well. So we have Allie Hubble from Crestwood, Daisha Berry from Bonnie Lake High School, and Tawny Rendell from Emerald Hills Elementary. And we're just super excited that they get to share firsthand. It's easy for us to tell you what it is they do, but really to hear from them. And I also want to recognize behind you is Josh Ekpalza, another member of our Student Services team, our Director of Equity, who also works closely with us as a team. Just the fact that he's hiding back there doesn't mean you can't call him. Just wanted to call that out. Also, we'd like to start with this month is School Board Recognition Month. And so the plans in front of you are courtesy of the Student Services Department. Thank you for helping our students grow. Very nice. There you go.
Very nice. Thank you.
Welcome. Right, so you ready for us to?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, so we can go ahead a couple slides. So
yeah,
wanted to start with our strategic plan. Everything we do is rooted in our strategic plan, and counseling services and student services as a larger whole. We largely focus on social emotional safety because that impacts all areas of our strategic plan, right? From goal 1 through goal 5, there's not a piece that is possible without the work that Student Services Counseling does around helping students feel safe, engaged, welcome. And it really is rooted in and focused on our promise to know, value, and support every kid. So we're super excited to share some of the things we're doing. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sherry, who's going to kick us off on our next part.
All right, well, we have a few outcomes today. The role of a school counselor may be a lot different than what you remember when you were in school. And so I want you to understand some of the key differences in what school counselors or guidance counselors used to have done versus what school counseling is today. And I'm really excited for our school counselors to share just some of the work that they're doing to close achievement gaps and to really serve the unique needs of our kids. So I'm showing a little bit of the evolution of counseling here on this slide. And so counseling of the past, how many of you guys can remember who your high school counselor was? Really?
I got called in my senior year, asked what I was going to do, didn't know. I was in music, and she pulled out a book, looked and said, "Do you want to go to Oberlin University?" I said, "Sure." "Do your parents have a lot of money?" "No." "It was a great talk. See you." Mrs. Welch. It was a great talk.
Okay, anybody else remember? I don't remember.
Yeah.
But that's not their role anymore.
No reflection.
That is not the reflection here. It used to be very reactive services. Like I would call you in if something happened in your class and like you needed to talk to me, or if you were crying and you had to come down to the counseling office. It was more reactive services, not data driven. We would measure it based on how we think the program's going versus looking at real data of our students to measure the growth on certain skills. It was a much more isolated job than it is now. So school counseling today, we use something called the Ask a National model. And so that's a framework for best counseling practices where they're focusing on data-driven solutions for things in school. So you'll notice like the counseling work is deeply embedded in the goals that the principals have within their school improvement planning. And especially when they have these goals that are like for subgroups, a lot of times our counselors do very intentional work around these subgroups of students to help remove any barriers. So speaking of that.
Yeah, so our counseling goals, obviously, they intentionally align with school improvement plans. And we focus on both school-wide and closing the gap. And so you'll see this nesting. We have our district strategic plan, and then that our school improvement plans focus and support on our strategic plan. And then specifically when it comes to our counseling program, we have our comprehensive school counseling plan. And we use data from the TFI action plan, oh gosh, TFI, here I am nervous in front of it, thank you, I'm nervous. Tiered fidelity inventory that schools complete on a yearly basis to really understand our MTSS systems. And then they focus on student growth goals, as do many of our other staff members as well. And so just want you to see that nesting of our counseling goals within the strategic plan and school improvement. So there's a lot of information on this, but big picture, I hope you recognize just simply the triangle, the tiered system of support. Just as Sherry indicated, school counseling is not a standalone service. And in fact, school counseling services are embedded across the 3 tiers of tier 1 for support and prevention with kids. But basically, the 3 tiers of the multi-tiered system of support for students, and they play a critical role supporting behavior, academics, and social emotional needs through prevention, early intervention, and sometimes intensive supports. I mean, they are found in all elements of a tiered system. So big picture, just want you to see their layer of our tier onto our tiered system.
One of the things I want to point out in this is a lot of times when we think of school counselors, we think of like the one-on-one counseling that someone might get, but they're doing classroom lessons, they're doing small groups. And I think some of what they're going to share today is around some of those, like that diversity of what their role covers in the schools. So we follow what's called the Ask a National model. So the American School Counselor Association model. And with this, there's 3 domains. So counselors, they focus on academic development, career development, and then social emotional development. And I thought those just really fit well into our portrait of a graduate that we have. And thinking about all of those elements in the portrait of a graduate, where those 3 domains, they really intersect what we see for all of our kids in order to graduate. And so I want to spend most of our time today with our counseling panel. So as in the next couple of slides, I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves, but what we do as kind of an end of the year thing is they do this counseling spotlight where they shine a light on one of the things that they've done within their work over the past year. And so I thought, what a better way to introduce themselves than to give you one of their spotlights from last school year and kind of talk about what they highlighted as an element of their work from last school year. So, all right, Tawny.
Start with Rubiki group. So again, I'm Tawny from Emerald Hills. I do a needs assessment. All elementary counselors do a needs assessment at the beginning of the year. And one of the questions that we ask is, do you feel your school is safe and welcoming? Do you feel your class is safe? And last year I had a surprising number of students that said that they did not feel that their school was safe and welcoming, particularly African students. And I'm not saying African American students, I'm saying African students, because students with a parent who is from Africa. And this is really disturbing to me and the admin team. And so after giving it a lot of thought, I asked some of those students to come meet me for Swahili group, where they could teach me some words in Swahili and I would be a learner. And then I decided to expand it to all of our students who had a parent who had African heritage. So we wound up with 10 students total. And I started out with a survey. school is safe and welcoming. Actually, I used the data from the original survey for that, and then added data from the remaining students who came. I asked, or I added a question: my school respects and welcomes people from all races, cultures, and backgrounds, and I feel proud of them. I also asked them a question. I know a lot about my culture, and a surprising number of kids, especially the older ones, fifth graders, like, oh yeah, Miss Randall, I've got this. I know everything about Kenya. My mom talks to me about it all the time. So we had a just really fun time in group. We would have guest speakers. Mr. What's his name? Maurice from Sumner High School set us up with some guest speakers, some students from Sumner. We had parents come in. We had some food. The students would go home and learn a fact about their country and come back and report it. And it was really pleased at the end of the year how much those numbers went up. The only number that went down, and I took this as actually positive, was I know a lot about my culture actually decreased, because all of the students said, I really need to know more about Kenya. I need to know more about Sierra Leone. So I thought that was pretty cool. But their feelings of belonging, their sense of our school as being safe and welcoming increased quite a bit. And this year, most of the parents who had students in that group reached out to me and asked me if I was going to do Rafiki group again. Rafiki means friend in Swahili, by the way. So very rewarding. Any questions?
Amazing.
Come by
No.
anytime. I'll tell you when the group is.
Great.
And just making sure you guys know, they're highlighting one small thing
Yes.
that they did, where I'm like, that's a lot of work, but that was a piece of the puzzle.
Hey, Tony, can you speak about the behavior referrals?
Yeah, so thanks. Do you know what Swiss is? I'm wondering how.
I do, but,
Okay. All right, so we
Just,
have, what does Swiss stand for? It's our behavior referral database, school-wide
Information.
information system. Thank you. And so, when there is a behavior incident that a staff person thinks is sufficiently concerning, so this isn't just me telling a kid in the hallway, oh, he's walking feet. This is something that, it is concerning, perhaps repeated or perhaps high in intensity. It will be logged into our Swiss system. And we had a little guy, I'm gonna look at my numbers here, because I included one student in this Rafiki group. It was mostly 3rd through 5th graders, but I had one little guy who had a lot of Swiss referrals. He was our highest flyer, and I don't know if I put his number up there, but he was our highest flyer in the entire school for Swiss referrals. He was physically aggressive to peers, verbally aggressive to the teacher, disrupting class multiple times in a day. And I thought he could benefit. He had parents who were from Africa, and I thought that he could really benefit from the modeling of this group. So I told the other group, you're the elders in our group. You need to model for this friend. And we had lots of conversations about how to behave when someone is disrespectful to you, how to behave when you don't like something that's going on. And his behavior referrals plummeted. We don't have him back this year, unfortunately, but by the end of the year, he was doing really, really well. And I think this group was one part of it. There were a lot of other pieces, but.
Tawny, is that the very last line that you're referring to?
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thanks,
From
Sarah.
39 to
In the first trimester, 39 to
10 for the last 2 trimesters.
for
That's
the last 2
significant.
trimesters, yeah.
Yeah, that's sense of belonging. Yeah, yeah.
Which impacted the learning of everybody in this class.
Right, well, Crestwood, Ellie?
Okay, so one small group that I focused on last year at Crestwood was the Emotional Regulation Peer Leaders Club. So the goal of this club was to help students build confidence in managing their emotions, overcoming challenges, and self-regulation while connecting with peers and building positive relationships. So last year at Crestwood, we had a really tough population of kindergarten friends. So that's where I spent a lot of my time. So me and the principal, Lisa Brosevich, we were thinking like, how can we help target these kids? At the same time, we had some 2nd graders that could have used a little bit extra help and would have been good peer leaders. So we paired them together. So for 6 weeks, myself and another kindergarten teacher co-taught the Character Strong Tier 2 curriculum to a group of kindergartners and a group of second graders. And it was just a really cool opportunity for them all to work together, especially because they don't really get that opportunity often. And some of the curriculum we went over was kind of noticing your buttons or what's triggering you, naming your feelings, and brain, body, and behavior powers. So what was cool about this is the pre-test and post-test averages for each question, the average went up to a 4 or higher, which on my scale was always. And so I'll read you some of the questions. So the first question that I asked them before the group and then after the group was done was, 1, when I feel angry or sad at school, I know what I can do to help me feel better and get back to learning. Number 2, I notice when I'm acting differently than my teacher expects me to, and I change what I'm doing to follow directions. Number 3, I'm able to identify a range of emotions. Number 4, I'm able to read my body's cues and know what emotions I'm experiencing. And number 5, I'm able to identify triggers that influence my behaviors. So that was impressive that those all went higher. And then I also look at Swiss data a lot, like Tawny was talking about. And so before the group, the Swiss numbers were pretty high overall for our kindergarten. That's like the average number of referrals. And then by the end of our 6-week group, the kindergarten Swiss referrals had significantly decreased. But we did notice, however, that some of the second grade Swiss referrals had increased. And I was thinking that that might be maybe I need to have a more targeted group of second graders. I was really focused on who we chose as our kindergartners because they were kind of our heavy hitters last year. So anyways, another cool positive of this was not only did the second graders get to be positive peer role models to the kindergartners, but then going out to recess, which I do a lot, I would see those second graders working with other young students, not just the students that were in the group. And then the kindergartners got to then go in to their classrooms and kind of be examples and peer leaders of what they're learning in the group. And that's what was awesome about pairing with the teacher too, because then they see that it's not just things that they learn in Miss Sally's office with the counselor, it's, you know, kind of what's expected at school and the what we want from our students to be great learners. So yeah, and then this year, kind of knowing everything that I worked on last year, I'm in charge of the 5th grade Orca Mentors, which is our some servant leadership opportunities. And so they get to go every Tuesday, a group of them get to go to kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade classes and have lunch with them, and then go out to recess with them. And the younger kids just love it. The 5th graders love it. Today when I told them they got to go to kindergarten, they got screamed and they were so excited. So it was cute. But yeah. Any questions?
Sounds like a great program where you're kind of flexing in both directions as far
Yeah.
as modeling behavior.
Yeah,
That's great.
it's cool.
And if you're doing that in kindergarten, think of the dividends, you know, for years to come.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
He took skills quickly and.
yeah. And we use the Character Strong Tier 2 curriculum, and that was really cool because it just kind of has everything laid out for you, and then it's just easy to navigate. And so, and then it's easy for the teacher to understand how to use that, and then she would use some of the stuff for her whole class too, which was awesome for her. So
You're on perseverance right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Seems appropriate.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
But Ally, and I, both of you, when do these learnings take place? Like it?
This one that we did was during recess, so their first recess, which is about 30 minutes. And so some of the kids at first, and some parents, we have to make sure you ask the parents, of course. Some parents are concerned about like their kid missing their recess time. So if that's a concern, then we could have shifted it to like lunchtime or something. But it just kind of depends when there's a good time. But this one particular one was during recess once a week for 6 weeks.
Rafiki group was at lunch, because if I had done it during recess, it might have been harder to get kids to come, so. At lunch.
Hi, and Deisha. Okay, high school's a little different. Just a tiny bit. So we also try to be really data driven in our efforts and where we're focusing and spending our time and what students we're working with.
one of the things that we do, a needs assessment as well. But we also look at our school-wide SIP data and looking at groups of students, some groups of students who are struggling more than others. So struggling meaning not passing classes at the same rate as the general population, or just maybe not on time graduation and things like that. So we decided last year to focus on our McKinney-Vento students. And McKinney-Vento is our homeless, unaccompanied youth. And we included with that our foster youth as well. And so our thoughts were, kind of one, trying to figure out, okay, why are they not passing? Like what's going on? Do they have resources that they're not getting? Do they need access to help after school and they don't have transportation? Because a lot of them are relying on ANA transportation. Do they need school supplies? Do they need a snack in the morning? Like, what is it that is creating this barrier for these students? So we just started tracking. We were able to run weekly reports of their grades. And every Monday, as part of our PLC, we reviewed their grades. And any student who we saw was struggling, we were pulling those students in and having conversations. And it wasn't our typical, you're missing this assignment, let's fix it. It was more bigger. What's going on? What are the needs that are not being met? An example, one student that I really worked with a lot last year was he needed help after school. And his ride came right as school ended. And so it was simple fix. Just I worked with our McKinney-Vento liaison and building liaison. She worked with transportation, arranged for him a couple of days a week to get a ride later. Easy. Then he was able to stay after and get some tutoring. And honestly, he passed all his classes. It was amazing. So, and I also really think that connection, that identifying barriers, was part of what helped students raise their grades. Really being intentional, really looking at their grades every week and calling students in. So, our first look at our students when we first looked at the beginning of the year, 48% of our McKinney-Vento students were passing all their classes. It's not a lot. But after first semester, 69% of students were passing and earning credit. So it's still lower than our total number of students, but that is a pretty big jump. And then at the end of the year, I was trying to find our final end of the year data and I couldn't find it today, but it's similar to that class number where the McKinney-Vento students had a big increase in their pass rate for the year.
I want to point out how intentional that work is, though.
Well, I think too, when you're getting to the high school level, especially McKinney-Vento students who are struggling with homelessness, they're either living out of a car, hotel or motel, just probably being seen, being acknowledged that you know who they are and you recognize that they can use some assistance, probably just made them immediately feel, wanted and seen in the building. And that right there is going to have a big impact. And then when you actually get into the work with them, you can see the numbers jumping up.
Yeah, or connected, seen. One of my, not that I have favorites, but one of my favorite little guys, he was a freshman last year, is part of ASB this year, and just thriving. Like you see him around, he's doing things, he's smiling.
That's a big deal, the jump from not being seen at all or being known to being an ASB.
And he was one who showed up on my list, the weekly list often.
I would imagine
And she's
too,
doing so much better.
like just the weekly review and that if you're homeless, that there's somebody who's actually holding you accountable to do the work, right? Because that there's going to be someone who's going to check and they're going to, bring you in and ask you about it and helps just motivate you to do something, right? That they care.
Yeah, I think it helps students not slip through the cracks. A lot of times, McKinney-Vento students are mobile, they're highly mobile, so they're not always staying at our school or within our boundaries. And so how can we support them? I did have one student move to Tacoma. I did a Zoom with the Tacoma school to help transition that student to Tacoma. So I feel like overall I got to know those students a lot better. This year, our PFS, Behavior Family Support Specialist, is doing more intentional work with them. We are shifting, we're still using data. We are shifting the counseling focus to 504s because that was the next biggest group that did not have success in passing all their classes. They stood out a lot, so working on making sure their accommodations are appropriate, that students know what their accommodations are, teaching them how to advocate and ask for help when they need to use their accommodations. So yeah, that's our goal this year is around 504 students. Because they continue to be a group who really needs some help. Not that we're not paying attention to our McKinney Vento, but we're including them, the 504 this year.
Once you've established some institutionality there, then that work can
Yes.
continue while you're working with another group that's still gonna continue.
Yes, needing that same kind of focus and figuring out, okay, why are they not passing? And students are on 504 for lots of different reasons. And so really kind of figuring out, okay, how can we best support them? And, meeting their accommodations or do they need something else, teaching them skills too, to like self-advocacy and awareness. So sometimes executive functioning, depending on whatever it is they need help with.
Josh, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just wanted to add, last year's, graduation rate jumped 12% for McKinney Vento students. And when, our team, working, with Andy, on this and looking at this, we attributed to the work that Bonnie High School had done with the intentionality of focusing and supporting, our McKinney Vento, students. So, from the year prior, it was a 12% jump in the graduation. So I'm just wanting to, I just wanted to say that. It's a big jump.
That's awesome, yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna ask, sounds like you guys all use data to identify your subgroups and kind of your priorities. Do you feel like the data sources that you get are what you need? Do you require, it sounds like too, that in order to get good data, you need the teachers to buy into inputting into that. Do you feel that that is embraced and recognize how you use it within your schools?
I would say at the high school, ours is less on teacher input as it's more hard data, like grade data, how many are passing their classes at a grading period or whatever moment we're looking at. And then for our needs assessment, it's student perceptions of I feel safe at school, or we could share that with you if you want to see that, but lots of questions that we ask students. And then sometimes we've ran groups based on our needs assessment data, social emotional, like anxiety related groups or things like that. It just kind of depends year to year what the needs are, which is, I love the ASCA model. It's just being way more intentional instead of just guessing. Well, I think we should do this year. No, this is what the data says we should focus on this year. And then how can we, there's 5 counselors at Bonnie Lake High School. How can we as a group work to make positive changes for those groups of students?
I think it's utilized in the elementary level too. We all use the Swiss and that's really helpful, and teachers buy into it. And when a student gets a referral, the teacher puts it in so the teacher knows what had happened, and then it goes to our assistant principal and she sees it. And I can see them too, so it's helpful to use.
I've never seen Swiss system, so is it a specific, is there specific write-ups of what occurred, or are there certain definitions of
There's
what
like a drop down menu, and each student's listed on there, and then you can kind of give a drop down and you can put a comment of it explaining what happened too. So
Thank you.
Contains a lot of information, time of day, so you can get graphs, this kid always spikes on a Monday, what's going on with him on Mondays, that kind of thing, time of day or area of the building.
Does that also get passed on to parents?
Sometimes. If a student, most kids have 0, in Swiss, there is not,
Right.
but, yeah, sometimes when.
But write-ups, I assume, would involve notifying parents.
Yeah, yes. And sometimes, when parents are taking their kids to the doctor, we'll print out a packet, which will include Swiss data for them so that the doctor can really see this is really a problem.
Thank you.
Well,
We do have one member online. Tom, just jump in if you have any questions. He had surgery, so he's at home recuperating, but I know he's online. So Tom, just jump in if you ever have any questions, okay?
hi, Tom.
Hi, everybody.
He may or may not respond, but
That's
go ahead.
okay.
He's waiting.
Stop. Oh, okay. There we go. We had one team member that couldn't join us today, but I did want to just share really quickly her data because I think what I was hoping you'd see from our panel is the diversity of what our counselors do. And Aubrey Merritt over at Maple Lawn, she presented to us and like blew me away with her intentional focus on one specific student who is selectively mute. And over the course of, if you notice on her graph, over the course of meeting with her over the course of the year, she went, I think it was 4 sessions without saying a word. And like finally the 3rd session, she reported her anxiety level, and you can see as time went on with meeting with her over the course of the year, like she grew and like started at whisper, you know, eventually it got to the point where she could like actually do a reading assessment with the kiddo in her office. So just seeing that type of impact where, yes, it's one student who does not qualify for special education. She's not getting any special services, but through the interventions with her counselor, we were able to start like making academic progress. So I just thought it was very impressive, and I wanted to show you like just the diversity of the skill set that our counselors hold here.
Just that graph, you first look at it, it's a little overwhelming, but once you actually understand that graph, that's very amazing. To see the anxiety line going down, the words spoken going up, and just seeing that progress for that student is amazing.
Well, I'm thinking of the perseverance it takes to sit through 5 sessions without the person saying a single word. I don't think I could do it. So.
Amazing.
I thought we'd just answer a couple of panel questions, but if you guys have questions that you want to ask, please go ahead and ask them. But the first panel question that I had for our group is, how does your role support our promise to know, value, and support every student? So, Bonnie, do you want to maybe start on this?
Sure. I loved it when we came out with this promise in the Sumner-Bonney Lake School District, because I think this is so important. My goal every year is to know all of my kids. With 530 students, I'm more successful with some than with others, but I do make it a goal of mine to have lunch with every student at some point before they get to 5th grade. And we don't have a lot of turnover at MLS. So I have a little picture book with all their school pictures in it. And when I have lunch with them, I'll check them off so that I can, at any time I have a free lunchtime, and we have 3 lunch periods in Emerald. So anytime I have, you know, I'm free at 11:30 tomorrow, I'll go, oh, okay. And I'll find a kiddo in 4th grade that I haven't had lunch with yet. And I always meet my target by 5th grade. And then I have more intentional work with them when they're in 5th grade, because we have a student leaders program. And so I'm usually, by the time they get to 5th grade, we're doing multiple lunches together. But that is how I know all students. And I have, you know, questions that I ask each of them. You know, who's at home with you? How about pets? You know, what do you like to do when you're not at school? And it's a part of my job that I really value, because I've established a rapport with kids. So later, if there's a problem, they need to come in and tell me about something that's going wrong in their life, school, you know, wherever. We've already established that rapport, and I'm not spending time with them just trying to make them comfortable in my office.
At the high school, a couple of things that we do, we try to see all of our freshmen before winter break. And really it's calling them down, checking in, how's high school going so far? Or have you joined clubs or sports? How are you checking on grades? How are things going? And so I always tell students kind of 2 parts. One is I want to meet them and check in on them, but I also want them to know who I am and where my office is. It's a big school, and sometimes they have to ask where I'm at when they get their little slip to come down. So I want every student, I have 110 freshmen this year. I want every freshman to know who I am and where my office is and what I do for them at the high school. We also see our seniors in the fall. Seniors are getting ready to launch. And that's application season. And so we call in every single senior and just whether that's checking on where you at with your Common App, you need a letter of rec, what are your plans for next year? Let's research some trades if you're on, whatever it is, connecting them to apprenticeships or trades or helping them with their college applications. We meet with every one of our seniors in the fall. And then during registration season, we call it, kind of February, March timeline, we meet with every 9th, 10th, 11th grader. And that is to check in on their courses for next year, make sure they're meeting their high school graduation requirements, and that it's their classes that they're choosing are matching their future plans. Whether that's four-year college or trades or whatever it is, that their classes make sense for them with what they want to do in the future.
One of my favorite parts about my job is that we do get to know almost every student. And so, like Tawny, one of my goals when I started at Crestwood, I'm in my 3rd year now, but was to learn every student's name. So last year I got that. Now I'm still working on the new kindergartners, but I'm really proud that I know them all. And then I get to do like bus duty in the morning and afternoon, or I do my small groups or classroom lessons. We go into each classroom and teach a Woolly lesson in the fall. And so that kind of introduces them to me, and then they know how they can come see me if they need help or anything. But even just walking in the hallways, we're just very enmeshed with our students, and that's what I love about it. You get to work with them all of the years they're at Crestwood, not just for 1 year. You were their teacher, so yeah.
Sounds like all three of you have very busy schedules.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think you guys, oops, thank you.
Yeah.
I think you guys have heard some of the differences from just their responses so far of how different it is between elementary and secondary, but I thought you guys could elaborate a little bit on some of the key differences in counseling approaches between elementary and secondary, how those developmental needs shape what you do. So.
I kind of think, especially at elementary school, and especially when they're new to elementary school, you're really focused on teaching them how to be a learner and how to be a good, safe, and kind community of your school culture in your classrooms. And so I think kind of by doing that and having them be a well-rounded learner helps set them up for more success in the future, academically and in their personal life and things like that. So that's kind of what we really focus on at the younger grades. But
You want me to talk about, well, I think about, I do a lot of work with my 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and one of the things that I am looking ahead to is middle school and just having coping skills and emotional regulation skills, because when you look at the rates of mental illness and anxiety and depression in young adults, college age adults, it's really scary. So I'm really working a lot on normalizing difficult feelings and distress tolerance. And, if you're feeling like this math assignment is really hard, that doesn't mean that you rip up your paper and throw it or that you give up. It's okay to feel uncomfortable, and that's normal, and we have to persevere. So I do a lot of classroom lessons on that because I'm trying to get them ready for completion.
And at the high school, and I think I've talked a little bit about that, we're really, like, when I see those 9th graders, I'm telling them, my job to support them is to make sure they graduate. So, we're tracking credits, we're passing your classes, and if something's coming up, there's a barrier, social, emotional, or whatever it is that's getting in your way, our job is to help them problem solve and advocate to help them move past that so that they can graduate. So addressing the social, emotional, and then also helping them connect to career and college planning. Heather Miley in our building, our career specialist, is amazing. So we partner very closely with her too, to help kids find opportunities to research different career options. She takes students on field trips, and we bring in guest speakers, and always trying to connect students to that next step after high school.
Hey, And my final question for the group is just around partnering. I know our counselors are just a very integral part of their staff. And so how do you partner with teachers, administrators, outside agencies, and families to create support systems for kids throughout their school experience? You want to start this time?
Kind of mentioned that a little bit. So we host a few parent nights. So we have our senior career and college night. Well, not just for seniors, we actually love it when freshmen start planning too. So but we do a senior parent night as part of that. Next week is our financial aid night, where we are helping families who need help completing the FAFSA or WASFA to complete that. And then we do an options night, helping families understand dual credit enrollment, so Running Start, Skills Center, AP, College in the Classroom, those kind of programs to earn college credit while they're in high school. In terms of like future planning, those are lots of our programs that we have to help work with families. And then partnering with our teachers when there's a concern, we host lots of parent-teacher conferences. We're getting teachers and parents and students all in the same room to problem solve or to, identify what's going on and how are we gonna work together to help the student. Working with our community partners on mental health. I'm grateful for the community partnerships we have with Daybreak and Pathways to Change and the Zelzat group and what's the drug, alcohol, and drawing a blank on her name.
Okay, Youth and
Family
Services.
and
Consejo.
and the Auburn one. What is Eden a part of?
Oh, Heidi's Promise.
Heidi's Promise. Yes, we have great partnerships with community members to support students who need mental health or drug, alcohol, or so, and that's all helping students reduce barriers so that they can be successful.
I think being the school counselor, you are constantly talking to parents and teachers, and lots of different stakeholders. A lot of connecting that I do with families is through 504 students who need a 504, kind of working with them and their teachers. Oftentimes, I'm creating the initial 504, so kind of going through that process and seeing what's needed for students. Also, going back to what Sarah was talking about with the tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 MTSS process. I'm part of all 3 of those tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 teams at our school, but tier 2 is a really cool spot because it's the kids who need a little bit extra help than just the tier 1 that everyone gets. And so that's a really great time that I get to work with our administrators and our teachers to be able to figure out how we can help best serve this student and what kind of accommodations they might need, like a small group or check in, check out with a trusted adult and things like that. So yeah, it's a lot for me.
I would say, probably because I've been at Emerald Hills for so long, I talk to a lot of parents and people are always looking for parenting advice. I mean, people really don't know where to turn, in our society. So I get a lot of calls from parents saying, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think? Do you have suggestions for me? I make a lot of referrals to outside counseling. I work with multi-care. We have a multi-care therapist coming into our building 1 day a week. So that's a lot of time is making those referrals and talking to parents about what that looks like, that's not a school district employee. That's just an agreement we have for somebody to use space in our building to reduce the barriers for parents, of having to take a half a day off work every week, come pick up their kiddo, take their kiddo out of school, drive them down to Puyallup and then bring them back. Instead, that child can just be seen at our building for a half hour or an hour. So a lot of time spent doing those kind of things, teacher consultations. Just kind of whatever people need, because at the elementary school level, at least, parents are such a huge part of their lives. I mean, maybe that's true when they're older too, but parents and teachers really, it really is a group effort trying to help these kiddos.
On the parent education note, Tawny's presenting at Building Bridges in a couple of weeks around anxiety But she's also led other district-wide trainings for like Love and Logic and so like they have this true belief in providing everyone with the tools that they need for success. So it's awesome. Well, so those are all the questions I have for the panel. Do you guys have any questions for our counselors or district office staff?
I have a question, the work that you guys do and the skills you bring are amazing. I'm sitting here thinking, gosh, I hate getting old. But, you know, for 30 years or so, I've been able to watch what has transpired in the district. And really, we did go from when I first got here, which was the very reactive, very traditional, you know, even kids who boasted that in 4 years they never saw their counselor, never knew who they were, to building things. And I know there was a lot of pain for those of you guys that have been here for a while and worked your way through the beauty of advisory at the secondary level, building that, but to where it is now is truly such an amazing place to be. And the best part is that the kids do know that they're cared for. The kids and parents don't always express it all that successfully, but know how much care goes into that, how much skill and how much talent is constantly being done. And without your work, I don't think we're at the places we're at with graduation. But even more importantly, I mean, there are some kids who will never graduate, no matter what we do. And I'm looking at my secondary friend thinking we all, you know, after the day after graduation would sit there and go, I don't know what you would beat yourself up because so-and-so didn't walk across the stage. But years later, they would contact you and tell you they're being successful. And I'm being successful because here's what happened. Some of them came back 10 years later and still wanted their diploma, so that was great. But to watch what's transpired, it's just truly been amazing. And it's because of the work of you guys. It's because of that. And it's because of the leadership at the district level of making sure that the resources have been there. Hasn't always felt like it. I know that. I know that sometimes it took a while to see the positives of some of the things we were doing, but the other piece that truly, I talked to my wife about this. My whole career of 41 years was pretty much at the high school level. But those last 5 years or so, I had the pleasure of going down and seeing what happened at the elementary and middle school. And there is such magic in the counseling that those young kids have never had a clue. So thank you guys very much for all you do.
It was a great brief. The fact that there really isn't a ton of questions just speaks to how well the presentation was put together, and the information that you provided us is just outstanding to learn and see what's happening at all levels. So thank you for all you do.
I really appreciate tonight's presentation. I'm glad we're not lumping everyone into one group. You're finding their challenges and you're working on those and then put them into the big picture. So everyone is different, and this way you're addressing every issue the kids might have. That means a lot to all of our students and parents.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Tom. Questions or comments? Awesome. Great job. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks guys for being a part of this tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. Or you have a busy day and then to take your evening. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here. All right, that brings us to.
Okay.
We're all good? You can stay for board discussion.
Oh, okay. Oh, we can-
Take home to your family. Is that what
To
it
go. Ally,
Thank you both.
And your son didn't.
oh, my son went to your?
I know.
I've watched it many times. It looks like a great. Well, congratulations. Bye. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
You get to stay.
Thank you.
I don't want you so I can see faces. Yeah. When you're at the little kids table.
Thank you, Connie.
What's that?
Owls.
Yeah.
We've got a few other things here to go over. We've got some stuff that Dr. Glenn wants to go over. Before we get to that, is there any topics that anybody wanted to bring up tonight?
I know last year I did it not in the most timely fashion, but I talked about meeting days of the week. And I know that Lori, not that she's an eager beaver, overachiever, but is already working on, yes, the Bible of the Sumner School District, the calendar. And I always, as building administrator, if I did something throughout, then the next year was, okay, let's talk about, is it working? Do we need to shift? Because there was no sanctity to it. It was just trying to come up on a better day. So I'd like to at least have a discussion about does Tuesdays really work for everybody, or do we need to try another one?
For me, Tuesdays are really good. The only day of the week really is not is Thursdays, so. You have. Wednesdays that were tough for you?
I do have meetings on Wednesdays, but I have to say, having board meetings on Tuesday, I don't know what it is. It makes the week so. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I always think, oh, it's Wednesday and it's not. I add another day. So I don't know if it's just I'm getting used to it still, but yeah, I mean, it does create a crunch for me on Wednesdays, on some Wednesdays when I have that overlap for sure, but you guys have always been very gracious and.
I know my
Whenever
one question I
we're-
can throw it out at Jamie, please, but I was concerned when we did Tuesdays was I knew the rhythm having worked for Lori of when I had to have things in and such, and I worried about making a crunch for you and your team having things done that you needed to do to prepare for us. Because I know you are meticulous about being ready for it. I may have gotten in trouble a time or two.
Thank you. I don't have a day particularly that I couldn't do it. It just flexes, so there's not a day that I couldn't do it. I will say Wednesdays, I liked Wednesdays better for some reason, and maybe that's just how it started, but I think the same and just, feels longer as the week feels longer, and I feel like I have less time to prepare for some reason, which isn't really true, but it feels that way.
Tom, do you have any thoughts on any days of the week that work for you or don't?
It's fine, but Wednesday's more comfortable for me as the week goes on. I've got time to dig into things that way from the weekend, and I'm getting used to it. So whatever the majority wants to do, but if I had a choice, I'd say Wednesday, but if not, Tuesdays is fine.
Wednesdays would be great for us. And we'll accommodate whatever you want, but I don't think we realized that Tuesday is a little bit of a pinch. I think we enjoyed having the Monday, Tuesday cushion before Wednesday, just to make sure everything was done like it needed to be, because Monday is Monday now, and like it's published and ready to go and done on Monday, and it just was really nice having just that one extra day. So if Thursday's not an option, if Wednesday is an option, going back to Wednesdays, that would.
We're talking for the next
year.
Yeah, everybody's
next
changing it, right? I just want to make sure that's correct.
It would start in September.
Not good with that.
Well, this isn't anything like you need to take action on.
I am ready to make a decision.
Yes.
Well played.
Just build it right. I mean, we're about to start building the calendar for next year. And knowing knowing that it could be, the direction is going to Wednesday is very helpful. So thank you.
Okay. Any other topics? Tom, did you have anything you wanted to discuss tonight?
No, it was a great presentation tonight. I've been every time I go to schools in the district, learning so much about our counselors. I'm amazed what they're doing. And I'm getting healed up, and looking forward to being with you guys next time. Thank you.
Make sure you recuperate. Don't knee surgeries are no fun.
Don't go away yet, and I think there's still more.
Yeah, there's still a little more. Stay online.
Okay.
I do. I just have a couple quick things for you. I appreciate Aaron bringing this back up to the surface, to my attention. There's some required trainings that you need to do for WASDA. There are 3 that WASDA requires, but we only need to do 2 of them because we don't, we're not required to do the tribal consultation because we're not on that list. So I just make copies for each of you to take home and you can look at it, read it over. Tom, I'll send you one on email.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So that for you to keep. Thank you. You just gave me a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. And then I just wanted to bring your attention back to, the comment that Bill made at the last board meeting about, do you want to pursue, the DISC training? Do you want to think about in the future, maybe a book study? And I brought you just a little bit more information about what we did as a team, a classified operational team. This was a workbook that we worked through, just with some materials. And Kevin, you needed a book, and who else didn't get a book? That Tom. So Tom, I'll either drop this by your house or put it in the mail.
I'm gonna see him out there soon.
I'll give it to JB.
I'll bring it to you
I'll see you tomorrow.
Perfect.
Thursday. And today's Tuesday.
Hey, tomorrow, right, none of us know.
I think.
I know. So what are we thinking? Because here is your existing calendar. And if you want to fit this in, the proposal that I submitted to you really had 3 options. We wait until next year when we build the calendar and we build it in. We figure out how to take an existing study session and make it longer to fit in the, I mean, because the calendar is already built for the year. So things that are on the calendar, I mean, they're already, this team, I mean, we're already planned for like May. So we would need to fit it in addition to the study session, an existing one, or we find different dates that you would want to meet and talk about. I would suggest you do the disc first, and then if you want to add a book study, add that. And then how you approach it is completely up to you. It could be totally informal with dinner. It's still a study session, so there has to be notes and notice, and so there's a little bit of a formality to it, but if you want it to be a very informal time where we just come and discuss, all the way to if you want us to facilitate, bring like agendas and outlines and which would require really for us, because the way we do things, a lot of time, will really help us figure out which direction you're heading. So I'm not asking for necessarily a decision, but like a direction would help, because if you want to do the DISC assessment now, I would recommend hiring a facilitator. If you really want to go in deep to understand what it means. Mike Newman did that for us, and he's fantastic. Although that's what I would recommend. I mean, you can do this 1,000 different ways. You can just read it. Discuss it, you can just read it. So I guess what I'm.
You should read it. Yes, right?
Right.
This is what you're talking about.
And you could work through the workbook if you wanted to. I'm just trying to figure out what direction you want us to head, so we can either say, well, could we maybe think about this for next year? Or let's try something this year.
Thinking from my perspective, this calendar is pretty full. And it gets a lot easier for you to build around something when you have a fresh calendar to look at. So I would probably advocate for if more robust, if all of this is to be accomplished, I would say in the next calendar year. But in the meantime, we can on our own time dive into some of this stuff. And we can have, 2-on-1s or in our 1-on-1s, we could continue to discuss it, but I would probably not be a fan of disrupting this calendar at the moment. And allowing you to plan more for future calendar. That's.
Yeah, and I recognize, I mean, I was just talking to Terry about how it's almost the end of first semester and wow, we just started, or it seems like it. I kind of like the idea, even though I've started reading Houston's book.
Deep
It's
kindness.
a little bit, yeah, it takes me a little bit. Building a new calendar and that, because let's face it, we're gonna be right in the middle of the whole graduation scene and everything else going on here in just, it seemed like a few minutes.
Yeah.
So I still really like the idea of using the tool and the book study, whether it's Houston's or something else, but I totally understand that people have lives and trying to fit more meetings in right now is not always the easiest.
The one thing I think is that if we're going to do it, I mean, I think I would like to see us do it formal enough, like with the facilitator. To be able, to be able to get out of it what we should be getting out of it, because I think otherwise. We just kind of do it on our own at our own time. We're going to be at different places at different times, and I think that, you know, and getting through it and getting different things out of it, and I think that would not be a great use of time. Because I don't think we'd all be, you know, at the same, I think we'd get much more out of it if we were doing it with the facilitator at some point. But I also, that being said, I don't want to create a lot of extra work for everybody. I think, and I guess part of it, I was curious when you said kind of informal, like, was that like we do the work with the facilitator over things on more informal aspect? Because I think you said one of them, like 2 meetings almost.
Yeah, so to do the disc properly, we probably would want to contract with Mike for at least 2 sessions, and that would be a more formal setting. I was thinking like the book study would be informal. Well, it's one option. You can go all the way from informal, where we have dinner and we just talk about the book, where everybody just reads a couple chapters and, hey, what do you think? To us on the opposite end of the continuum, really spending a lot of hours planning, facilitating, you know, creating agendas and worksheets or whatever we need.
Yeah, no, thank you on that.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
No,
but,
thank you on
but in
that.
our minds, I mean, that's where we go, because we're teachers, right? Are we talking about it or teaching it? And that's what I think we
You
just.
know that Kelly's got
needs
the
some
lessons
direction,
already
right?
written out for us. He's building it as we speak.
Well, when you're talking about time, like for instance, I just kind of push a work call back. I need to do here probably in the next 15 minutes, so, you know, I have work that I gotta do after this meeting. So, you know, I think recognizing your time and how you build it in everybody's time, it probably would be, if we're gonna do it, let's do it in a robust way, so let's maybe plan for that. And not disrupt the current calendar.
So I have an idea that if we plan for this,
Sorry.
oh, sorry, yes,
Tom,
absolutely.
did you have any thoughts before we move to the next step?
No, sounds good.
So I have an idea that if we take the results, Erin, do you have any, because I don't remember.
Well, I guess I'm just catching up in my brain, because I think when this first came up, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we got really excited about that presentation and just kind of used that momentum to like, yeah, let's dive in and learn too. And so my thinking at the time was informal book study on the book that we got, John
Maxwell?
Yep.
Mhm.
And so I started listening to it, and in my brain, it was like, let's go to dinner and talk about the book. But then when I did this, I had questions about how I completed it. So I guess my question is, what is our purpose? What do we want our outcomes to be? And if we are gonna spend time on studying something, is this what we wanna do? Or is it something else? Because we just had this, is this what we're going for? So I guess my answer to your question is, I'm fine with pushing it back to when we have some time, and let's be thoughtful about how we use our time and what ways we want to grow and to learn as a board. And if this is the tool, awesome, great. But if we are gonna spend, because like I said, I was thinking more informal. So if we're gonna be more formal and thoughtful about it, which is great too, I wanna make sure that the it is appropriate.
Yeah. So here's my idea.
Okay.
First, it's a gift to have this conversation, first of all. Because there have been times where this board you've had to react to so many situations. We haven't had the gift of really stepping back to say, gosh, what is it that we want to learn? So first, that's a gift. Second, I think when we get the results back from your board self-assessment, it would be a nice way, I think we should look at it and see how something in the board self-assessment connects to something like a gap or a hole or something we identify in the strategic plan. that then kind of helps you determine what is the it, and it creates a nice triangle, right? So you're studying something that not only supports the strategic plan, but what the board self-assessment says might be a gap in our own performance together as a team. So that's what I would recommend. As Marilee says, you can take what you like and leave the rest.
I think that's a great way to approach it.
But that would mean everyone has to do the board self-assessment.
Yes, that is on our list of things to accomplish.
Okay. So are we good with that plan?
Yeah.
And then when we get those, we come back together?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
You can still do the DISC assessment, because I'd love to know your.
I
records.
did it, so fascinating.
I've done it. I like Aaron, there's like.
I know, I know what I'm not. I really wish on what I am.
Okay, so we have a plan.
Wait, yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
These,
Yes.
is there a timeline for this?
Well, not really. I mean, they say there's a timeline, you have to do so many within the first 2 years. Your OPMA training, you just recently done, so you don't need to do that again, but, yeah. Okay. I think I got what I need.
Okay,
Thank you.
alright, well then we shall be adjourned.
Yeah.
Michael, are we good?
Great, fine.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Tom.
Nobody's gonna check. Okay. And you don't get in trouble if you don't do them and you